From deep in the forest, high atop the Great Smoky Mountains, this is Smoky Mountain Off-Grid. So let's talk today about being uh, carbon neutral, about the new green energy. I mean, this is starting to come up again. Here we go, right? Now, the fact of the matter is that we don't need to produce less CO2, we need to produce more CO2. There's a reason that they call carbon dioxide a greenhouse gas. It's because they pump carbon dioxide into the greenhouses to make the plants grow. So we're going to ignore that obvious fact, right? And so let's use their own rhetoric against them, and I'll show you how stupid these politicians are. But first, in California, they're giving a certificate that you keep on the app on your phone if you've been vaccinated for this virus, right? So here we go. Here's the start of that's your passport. I mean, you won't be allowed in a grocery store unless you can show on your app on your phone that you have been vaccinated, right? I mean, that's coming. And speaking of grocery stores, the Kroger chain has shut down their grocery stores in California. They're not going to put up with the nonsense. Okay, so let's get on with the main event. What brought this to light to me is this thing about John Kerry going to Iceland to receive, the award for the most influential person about climate change, and what do you think? He walked to Iceland? You think he took a commercial flight? Oh, heck no. No, not John Kerry. He took his private jet. His family, he married money. His family, the Heinz dynasty, Heinz 57 ketchup. Yeah. So anyway, he he took it, and he in that private jet, according to the jet log, he flew around in that jet for 20 hours last year, which is 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide, as opposed to that's a private jet burns roughly 5 tons, emits 5 tons of CO2 per hour, as opposed to a commercial flight, which is, and I calculated it, 250 pounds per passenger per hour. He could have flown commercial. But oh no, he's too important, right? So let's use this against these guys, right? And a little bit of common sense and some math. And I'll show you how stupid they are. Now, the two biggest emitters of carbon dioxide are vehicles, powering vehicles and machinery, and producing electricity. So, this is what they're going after, right? Because the statisticians have told them that. And that's 60% of all the CO2 emissions. Barb and I put a lot of effort into being environmentally friendly, and being conscious of self-sustainability. We don't want to do any damage to the environment, and we don't want to do any damage to the natural resources that we are the stewards of. So, thus off-grid, we produce our own electricity, all that kind of stuff, solar power. So, I decided that it might be a nice little exercise if we calculated. I mean, I know, Barb and I know that we're at least carbon neutral. Um, and so I figured I'd calculate it. And I looked all the stuff up, just like you can look this stuff up. Um, and a human being produces roughly 550 pounds of CO2 from, it comes from, CO2 comes from the decay of carbon. So, your excrement, your breath, all that kind of stuff. That's 550 pounds a year, right? And so Barb and I, we're a family of two, just she and I. And we have we have a dog and we have a cat that live with us. So we're going to count them as humans too, even though they don't produce as much CO2 as we do. So we're going to say that we produce 2,000 pounds of CO2 a year just from being alive. Okay? Our little family unit. And we have two vehicles, and between the two of them, we accumulate less than 15,000 miles a year, but we're going to be conservative and say 15,000 miles a year. So there's another 12,000 pounds of CO2. Okay? So 1 ton of CO2 from just being alive, family of 4, and 6 tons from driving vehicles. And one of the vehicles is a mid-sized pickup, and the other is a very economically or very ecologically friendly foreign car. So now that's the total. Oh wait, we also heat with natural gas on the property here in town. So that's another 6,000 pounds. So we were up to 14,000 pounds of CO2, and that's another 6,000 pounds. So we produce, Barb and I, we produce 20,000 pounds or 10 tons of CO2 emissions per year. Okay, so what are, greenhouse gas, right? What are the things that absorb carbon dioxide and emit the oxygen, to scrub the carbon? Well, anything green. So here in town, we have a lawn, and that absorbs CO2, right? But we cut the grass, and that releases CO2. So that's a net zero, right? But the homestead is sitting in the middle of the forest. So how much CO2 does a forest absorb? Well, I had to look that one up too. 2.5 tons per acre of new growth trees, and half of that, 1.25 ton of old growth capacity. Well, the forest that we own and maintain is a mixture of old and new growth forest. So we're going to take the lowest number of 1.25 tons of old growth to determine if we are carbon neutral or not. So for us, it would take what? 8 acres? I can assure you, we are carbon negative. Matter of fact, we could use some of you folks to move out with us to be carbon neutral. So, if these politicians want to continue to go this way, why don't we as a society get on board and say, oh no, we have to go to the extreme. If this is going to end the world and all that kind of stuff, let's go to the very extreme. And let's pass legislation that everybody has to be carbon neutral. And if you're not, you pay a tax, depending on how much more carbon you produce from your consumption of utilities and gas and driving your car and all that kind of stuff. You pay a tax on, of X amount for however much more carbon dioxide you're responsible for producing than being carbon neutral. That put every one of them out of business. Every single one of them. John Kerry's just the tip of the iceberg. He's the energy czar, right? The green energy czar, right? Isn't he the new guy? And he is so far from carbon neutral that he'd be the first one to lose his millions. And he'd lose his wife's millions too. And there wouldn't be any more ketchup in the world because the Heinz fortune would be spent on carbon taxes. As a matter of fact, why don't we make it so that you can't run for political office if you're not carbon neutral? How about that? That's what AOC says all the time. How about that? So, okay, come on, AOC. Let's compare the numbers. Let's see who's carbon neutral and who's not. I mean, I'm carbon negative. She ain't even close to carbon neutral, I can tell you that. She's not doing anything to eliminate the carbon that she produces. Not a thing. As a matter of fact, her production of carbon dioxide increases over time as her salary increases and as her power in Congress increases because she burns more electricity, because she takes up more square footage as far as residence is concerned, which means that she burns more carbon-based fuel, right? I don't see any solar panels on the Capitol building. And who was it? Jimmy Carter, Reagan, somebody put solar panels on the White House, but the next administration took them down. I can't remember how it went. But anyway, so, yeah, right. This is, yeah. I mean, if they want to go this way, let's go. That's what I say. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's see who's carbon neutral and who's not. And if you are not, you better keep your mouth shut. That's all I can tell you. So that's all I got for today. So until next time, toodaloo.